And now in regional news, tonight we go to South Africa, where the ruling ANC party lost a case today against the Independent Electoral Commission, where it was litigating against former President Jacob Zuma's Umkhonto weSizwe party to be deregistered. And now to discuss this and more issues surrounding the South African election, we have online renowned political analyst Dr. Clyde Ramalaine, who joins us from Johannesburg. Dr. Ramalaine, welcome to NRTV. Let's get straight into it. The Electoral Court handed down a verdict against the ANC today in Johannesburg. What exactly went down?
Good day, NRTV and audiences. It's indeed a privilege to be with you again today. Clyde Ramalaine from Johannesburg, South Africa. What an eventful day, or rather week for that matter, or weeks, as we in the uprun to the 7th elections of the African National, or rather of South Africa, in which the dominant party has now distinguished itself for seeking a legal recourse in regards to the registration of the MKP. The MKP is the Umkhonto weSizwe party that is led, or rather has the face of Jacob Zuma, the former ANC president, as well as former SA president. The African National Congress strategy in regards to, or rather the problem that it has with the MKP, resonates within its understanding of the registration process that had taken place. In that, the African National Congress brought a case, at least two cases. One directed not at the MKP per se, but directed at the process and the institution of the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission. And so therefore the case that transpired today took place in the Electoral Court, for which we will give some analysis.
Right, Doctor, thank you for that rundown of what transpired this afternoon. Let's get into the judgment itself by the Electoral Court. What was the reasoning of the court in ruling against the ANC?
The African National Congress standpoint is that in the instance where there was a first rejection on the part of the IEC, the MKP should not have been entertained in a supplementation or to be able, or should not have been allowed to supplement its application. Instead, a fresh application needed to be lodged. The court, however, contends that Section 15 of the Electoral Act that engages on the subject matter of the registration of parties is not explicit and does not prohibit the IEC to request from political parties that seeks registration the occasion of them presenting what is considered to be supplemented documentation. And that by implication means that it is not denying the political parties that are applying the right or the opportunity to provide, even in instances where there is a rejection at first instance, supplemented documentation, such as is the case in the case of the MKP. And so the court then therefore dismissed that and said that the ANC did not make its case and therefore it lost today.
Okay, Doctor, now earlier you alluded to the fact that there are two cases that have been brought to the courts by the ANC against the MK party. Tomorrow, the KZN courts hand over yet another judgment. What is that case about exactly?
The ANC is now taking issue with the MKP for what it deems its inalienable right to have access to what it calls its trademarks. And one of those, of course, is the name Umkhonto weSizwe and stuff like that. So that is what the ANC would be praying for tomorrow, that the court in KwaZulu-Natal would find in their favor in that regard. Can the MKP continue to use its current name, MKP, and is it an infringement on the ANC's rights, trademark rights in that regard?
Okay, Doctor, now what I find interesting is that South Africa has over 350 parties registered to contest this year's election. And that being said, why is the ANC so disturbed by the registration of the MK party in particular?
It would appear that the ANC was okay with the idea of the existence of an MKP up until such time as its former president and its former leader, and still member, now suspended member, decided to publicly endorse MKP as the party that he will vote for and that he will canvass for in the uprun to the May 29th elections of 2024. It would appear, and it increasingly appears, that the actual issue here is located within the fact of the person and identity and name of Jacob G. Zuma as an outright contender, or rather endorser, of the MKP.
Okay, now finally, Dr. Ramalaine, recent polls suggested that the ANC will get below 50% of the ultimate results after the 29th of May plebiscite. But how much of an impact do you think this judgment will have on the ANC vote?
It appears that the MKP is presenting a serious problem to the African National Congress. Whether you want to try and deny it, whether they want to try and deny it, it is beginning to emerge that it is a bone of contention. It's a serious issue for the African National Congress in this regard. Now, I've said this before, that the ANC comes into these elections more vulnerable than before. Yes, the ANC at different epochs and different times presented vulnerability, but it has never been in the sense the way it is right now, because its vulnerability is better understood in the challenge of irritation that voters have with the African National Congress, predicated on the fact of what some define as service delivery. And I said before, we have to understand what service delivery means within the setting of an SA context and the ANC as a role player, because it's not that the ANC did not deliver service. It is a question of the quality of service and the volume of service the ANC has delivered, for which it is now adjudicated by the people. It is the question of the state of living in SA. That means we have higher crime statistics than ever before. We have a very expensive living expense and a reality in which the poorest of the poor is suffering, and the government, despite the fact of its 350 Rand grants, are just not being able to make the case that South Africans live better, at least, in the epoch of Ramaphosa versus his predecessor or predecessors before even his predecessor in that regard.
Very interesting times indeed lie ahead for the South African political landscape. Thank you, Doctor, for that comprehensive analysis on the situation between the ANC and the MK party. And now we move